Hello, everyone, and welcome back into another episode of Conversations with Chris and Cameron. It's episode 21, and we're going to be talking about Kentucky football as they are about to play against South Carolina this upcoming Saturday. And Cutter Boley is starting again, so that'll be exciting, right, Cameron?
Oh yeah, first SEC start for the kids. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Big weekend for us.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be exciting to see what he can do. Of course, he got his first official start last year against Louisville, and that didn't turn out well. He got injured in that game and had to bring in the backup quarterback. But hopefully, he can stay fully healthy against South Carolina. And if that's not the case, we'll see maybe Zach Calzada come in as well. But hopefully, Cutter Boley can play the whole game and keep Kentucky in the game against South Carolina.
Yeah, I'd love to see a big Cutter performance for sure. Kind of get the fan base fired up going forward. But big opportunity for him. I mean, it's a very winnable game, and we'll talk about that, discuss it a little bit. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, winnable game. Yeah, hopefully he can stay healthy and lead these guys.
Yeah, and like you were saying, it's a very winnable game. And of course, we'll talk a little bit about Kentucky basketball because officially on Monday was basically the start of fall practice for the team and getting ready for the season. I'm just excited about that. I can't wait to see what Kentucky basketball can do. I hope, like we should all be more excited about Kentucky football because we're 2-1 right now, but most fans are already pointing towards basketball season and seeing what Mark Pope can do year two under UK. So we'll get into that, of course, but our main concentration will be Kentucky football and Cutter Boley starting again.
Yeah, basketball, it feels so back, but technically it's not back yet. So yeah, still the focus is football, but yeah, some fun stuff to talk about with basketball. There's been the practice reports and there's been all the media that this team is there's been so many posts within this last week or two. So they're getting the fan base fired up and for good reason. So I'm excited about basketball, but like you said, we'll talk a lot of football in this one.
Yeah, and Kentucky basketball, real quick, they've been stepping up their content. Before we start talking about football, 17 days until Big Blue Madness while we're recording this podcast on Wednesday, September 24th. And then we're 30 days until the first exhibition game against Purdue, and then 41 days until tip-off for the first regular season game against Nicole. So it's coming around very soon.
Oh yeah, we're right there. It's right around the corner.
We're right there. But all right, let's start talking about Kentucky football. So UK, of course, is 2-1 going to the South Carolina game, and many fans expected that. And honestly, why so many fans are upset about UK football, of course, the past few years it hasn't gone as well. But that Ole Miss game, we were right in that, and some fans were like, "Hey, we got the two interceptions, we're up 10-0. We should win this game." But that didn't happen. I think that's one of the reasons why fans are upset right now that UK is 2-1. But I think everybody going into the season expected us to be 2-1 at this point, going to the South Carolina game.
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially in the offseason, a lot of people would kind of expected Austin Simmons to be this incredible replacement for Jackson Dart. So that was kind of the expectation going into the Ole Miss game, where it's like, you know what, we got them last year. They're going to come in full summer, looking ahead towards this game. Like they'll beat us. Obviously, it's not because of Austin Simmons, but they're a pretty good team, and we've seen that even since then. But yeah, 2-1 right now. It's kind of what we expected. It's what both you and I predicted going into this. So yeah, it's a big one this week, and yeah, I think there's a big mix of how the fan base feels, but I'm pretty optimistic with where we're at right now.
Yeah, I'm optimistic as well. And like I said, if Cutter can actually prove he can play against SEC talent, like I said, he struggled last year as a true freshman against Louisville in his first ever start, but you expect that, like he's playing against the ACC, that's his first true, official start of the year. And like I said, I have better confidence in Cutter Boley compared to last year to go into that Louisville game, and I expect him to do that. And I believe from what Mark Stoops said on Monday that, he didn't seem like too all in to Cutter Boley starting. It sounds like what I believe is, of course, coach talk, but what I believe from all this is, UK spent all this money to bring in Zach Calzada as QB1, and with NIL, you're supposed to spend that, and now, that money is going to waste because we wasted all that money on Calzada to be QB1, and potentially he might not be QB1 like going later on into the season.
Yeah, I think just overall, you need to do what's best for the program and for Stoops what's best for your job right now. So I don't like I get we paid some money for him, but like if he's especially if he's banged up, but like if Cutter's the better option, play Cutter. Like you want to be able to win games. So I'm excited to see what Cutter can do. Obviously, it's a big spot. I mean, we've talked to Juice and Jeff about it, where they mentioned that South Carolina is the hardest environment that they've ever played in, and they've played at some crazy places. So it's going to be a big. It's a night game. Like Sandstorm's about to be rocking. Like it's going to be a tough environment, but I like Cutter, and we'll get to see what he can do. And obviously, right when he came in the Ole Miss game, we talked about like the touchdown that he missed early, where he was a little bit inaccurate and he missed a couple things, but you could see that clean up just in 1 week's time going to the Eastern Michigan game.
Yeah.
So now we have 2 weeks to prep for the South Carolina defense that he'll be going against. So I'm
Mhm.
excited about it. I'm excited to see Cutter.
Yeah, and two things like you were mentioning, Garrett Juice Johnson and Jeff Badet basically said South Carolina decides the season for UK. If they win the game, they could easily win 8 or 9 games, they were saying. I forgot what they said exactly, but they had a very high confidence saying UK will get 8 or 9 wins this year. They can defeat South Carolina. And then the other thing is, I'm not for sure what Mark Stoops' exact record is coming out of the bye week, but I know it's not good. I should have done a little bit more research on that, but I don't think UK's record is the greatest. I think it's more like 3-9, 4-8, for UK coming out of a bye week.
I think it's 6-10. I think was the one, unless I'm thinking so. I think it was 6-10 off of bye week.
6-10. Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's only going into his 13th season, so I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, you get like double. I don't really know. That's the one that I had heard. I haven't done the research myself, but I heard that. I don't remember if it was KSR or somebody else that put that out, but 6-10 is what I heard.
Yeah, 6-10, which is insane. But hopefully, 2 weeks to prepare. UK can figure up a game plan against South Carolina. I know South Carolina is a tough team to play against, especially away. And I mean, last year UK kept it close until that fourth quarter, and then of course it was a blowout. They lost 31-6 last year, and I'm expecting UK to try and get some revenge. And basically, Mark Stoops said that Cutter Boley's confidence and decision making basically earned him this role, the starting quarterback role this upcoming game against South Carolina. And he also added that the teammates fed off the announcement in practice, and basically the whole team had extra energy around the team with the announcement that Boley would be playing against South Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing that's kind of underrated about the just the team aspect of it. Like when you're trying to decide who to play and you play like not that the team's not going to rally around Calzada by any means because like when you're part of a team you're truly are a family but like when it's a guy like Cutter where he's a true sophomore and he's going into this game it's like the team rallies automatically so like that they'll play there's going to be a little bit more of an edge to him like with playing for a guy like that whether it's upperclassmen kind of lifting him up because he's a younger guy or if it's just like you want to get this kid to where he can be, like where his ceiling is. So guys will do whatever it takes to get him there. So there's just a little different kind of play style that I feel like, and there's a little bit of an edge to guys once you play that younger guy and play a guy like Cutter, where it's a kid from the state. So you know that the fellas from Kentucky are definitely going to play a little bit tougher just with the state pride. But I think the guys are just going to play a little bit harder for Cutter. Like I think that's
Yeah.
just gonna. I don't know if it's going to be necessarily routes will be sharper, more crispy, but like I just think we're going to see a little bit more of a spark out of the offense playing for him.
Yeah, and I don't know what, Cutter Boley has that Zach Calzada doesn't, but there's always, just from watching the games, it just feels like there's an extra spark, whenever Cutter Boley comes in, like the team, listens or rallies around him compared to Calzada.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily like a Calzada is such a veteran in this, like that they're like, oh, well, I mean, he's got his own thing, like whatever. Where Cutter, whether he needs it or not, guys will be willing to offer a helping hand. Like if it's like
Mhm.
just a running back kind of communicating with different things in the backfield out of what they're seeing, where Seth McGowan's now a veteran,
Yeah.
where he sees something that maybe he just says to Cutter, even if Cutter's already seeing that automatically. So I think there's just a little bit of that, like where it's kind of taking them under their wing as they're the older guys, lifting him up a little bit, whether he needs it or not.
Yeah, and you know who is all about Cutter Boley being the starter?
Who's that?
Dennis Johnson.
Oh, yeah, that is true. Yeah, I did hear him talking about that.
Yeah. And if y'all don't know who Dennis Johnson is, of course, it's Jasper Johnson's dad. I think he's the Woodford County, he's like the, main person in charge of the athletic department for Woodford County Schools. So, you
Well,
know,
he's the varsity head coach.
varsity head coach too. I think he also does like something with the athletic department there too. Like he's like I
Yeah.
forgot what they call it in high school, like they call it the AD, in college or whatever, but like he's the main person in charge of all the sports as well for high school.
Yeah, Dennis is a legend, man. Like he's one of the best defensive players this like school has ever had. So yeah, it's cool. Obviously, the fact that he's Jasper's dad is awesome, but he's also got a legacy of his own. So yeah, shout out to Dennis.
And then you can't forget about Alvin Johnson too.
Yeah, his pops too, the whole family,
Yeah, the
legends.
whole family, and I'm glad Jasper Johnson ended up at UK to continue that UK legacy.
Yeah, no doubt. He had to end up here for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And just talking a little bit more about Kentucky football. So right now, the last time I checked Kentucky football, surprisingly, I thought it would be more of a, point discrepancy, but UK is only 5.5 point underdogs against South Carolina. And I thought, like of course South Carolina is 2-2. They've lost their two SEC matchups. I thought it would be more like 10.5 point favorites, South Carolina. So I was surprised whenever the line was so close to each other.
I was kind of expecting a touchdown. I was expecting kind of right 6.5 or 7.5. So 5.5 is a little bit lower than what I was expecting, but just South Carolina's not been they've not looked the part. And I think this is kind of what I was expecting a little bit going into this season where it was like there wasn't a whole lot of redeeming factors like where you're coming back with what they had where they lose a ton last year. They also have a gauntlet. That was kind of why I was a little low on them coming into this year, but obviously they had the Vandy game where it kind of got out of hand when a worse goes out, but Dylan Stewart hasn't looked the part. He's not been spectacular so far. Obviously, he had a good game against us last year, but
Yeah,
I think it's now more of the fact that like he's the guy. Like they had Kyle Kennard last year, who was the Nagurski Award winner. We were double teaming him. So now that freshman last year, he was obviously
Dylan.
going out there free. I think we'll be doubling him this year, so we'll get to see kind of what he can do against a different look from us. But they just haven't looked great necessarily. They had the Virginia Tech win that like I mean, they pulled away late. The punt return helped big time for them, but like they that game should have won by 90. I mean, Vanderbilt went to Virginia Tech and killed them, and they South Carolina didn't look great in a neutral site. So I
Yeah,
just think overall, South Carolina's not been what people expected, and they've been pretty bad overall. Obviously, still a really good team that we're gonna have to have a ton of respect for going into it. But yeah, 5.5 was a little bit lower than I was expecting, but still giving us a lot of respect though. That
yeah,
line is for sure.
yeah. And I mean, last year I believe they were, I think 2-3 going to the UK matchup last year, and then they finished the season 9-3 last year. South Carolina did, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, did UK give them that spark to, make their season a lot better last year compared to, previous years?
Wait, didn't we play them like week 2 though?
It was week 2, yeah. I
Because I
remember.
think they were 1-0, but they looked like bad against like Old Dominion or something in the first
Yeah,
one.
Old Dominion. Yes, now I remember. But I believe they went 9-3 last year. If I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah,
But
they had their big talk that they should have been in the playoff or whatever. Like,
yeah,
yeah, it was
and
crazy.
then they lost to Illinois.
Yeah, yeah, bad. Yeah, dude, that was embarrassing for Beamer. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I remember I was at my friend's wedding. Basically, I was in his party and we were watching the Illinois South Carolina game. And basically, I just remember whenever Shane Beamer went off during the middle of the game with the injury.
Yeah, Brett Bielema it was ticked. He still holds a grudge. Yeah, the holding the arms out. Yeah, it was that whole game was just wild. Those are two big personalities that I absolutely love that this sport has. But that was embarrassing for Shane Beamer for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely was. And like I said, I just remember seeing that moment and just laughing with all the, everybody else, like my friend Ryan, who was getting married, and the other bachelors, at that wedding day.
Yeah, that was a fun little bowl game, and then South Carolina fans claimed that they just didn't care and they weren't really interested in that. And it was like, well, it's easy to say that in hindsight.
Yeah. And just talking about South Carolina, so I mean, William-Brice, their stadium is going to go crazy on Saturday night. Like, I feel like it could be like Georgia all over again back in 2022 or was it 23? It was the year with Devin Leary whenever UK lost 51 to like 6 or something. I can't remember the score, but all I know is I just don't want it to be like that. But I mean, the crowd could be as electric as what happened with the Georgia Bulldogs a couple of years ago with Devin Leary and how bad UK was that game.
Yeah, no doubt. The stadium, I just looked it up. It's 77,559. It's a very deceiving number though, because that place gets a whole lot louder than the numbers say. Like you do not, you wouldn't think that place is one of the toughest places in the country, but it's definitely an insane environment, and that's what everybody you've ever talked to. I mean, you could talk to A&M last year, who ended up going 8-4, but a good 8-4. They went there, and South Carolina jumped on them early, like big time, and they were right there. Barely ended up losing to LSU last year. Like that, this is a place that people don't wish to go for sure. But and then Beamer's obviously had a good record against us, especially there recently. They won a lot of games in Williams-Brice. So the stadium's definitely going to be very, very difficult. The fans are going to come ready. This is kind of just an old SEC East rivalry type thing where we've just played them so much.
Mhm.
The fan bases, we don't necessarily hate each other, but there's a little something there for sure. So it's gonna be a fun one though. Big time environment for us.
I really think the rivalry, of course, it started, with Mark Stoops and back in the day about 10 years ago, causing the retirement of Steve Spurrier, like that. I feel like that's when the rivalry started to heat up. But I feel like when the rivalry reheated up, basically after UK owned South Carolina for like 3, 4 years, I feel like it started to heat up whenever Shane Beamer wore the sunglasses and then basically Mark Stoops said like before the season, like people can wear sunglasses and try to act like they changed the environment, but we do it here like we don't have to wear sunglasses because we changed the environment already. Something to that extent, but I feel like that's whenever the rivalry started back up between the two.
Yeah, and then after they beat us, I think it was the one at Kroger Field. After that whole back and forth, Shane
Yeah,
did
I
his
was
thing where he
there
was
that
in the
time.
locker room and he was throwing the glasses on. So he was like, "Man, they say that people aren't supposed to wear glasses or whatever." Yeah, they definitely don't like each other. And like whether they want to say it or not, there's a few different coaches that kind of don't like different guys. And Stoops, I don't know what other ones he wouldn't like, but Shane Beamer's definitely one that you can tell he does not like. But Shane Beamer, he's done. You put out earlier about what he said about Seth McGowan. So like
Yeah.
he tries to, I think, overdo the compliments out of just being like, no, 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 I don't hate this guy. But like we know deep down those two do not like each other.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about Seth McGowan between UK and South Carolina, and basically for sure UK will have to run the ball, and I would not be surprised if they don't run the ball as much as they did about 10 years ago whenever people were getting annoyed. But I would not be surprised if they run the ball as much as they did against Toledo earlier this year.
Yeah, yeah, I think we're definitely gonna have to run it big time, and I expect a big game out of
Yeah.
McGowan, and I could see this running back room just kind of having a big performance because this, not that the South Carolina defense has been bad, but like I could just see this O line. I mean, they've been solid so far, so I could see them kind of dominating this game a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the main thing for UK is they just have to focus on silent counts, communication, and then, of course, avoiding momentum swings with Cutter Boley starting his first SEC game.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it was the Texas Tech. I think it was Texas Tech Utah last week, where Utah with Rice Eccles Stadium, like that place is also where it's not super big. It's similar to Williams-Brice, where it's like that's just a place that people go and their dreams go to die. Like you just lose there. And Texas Tech goes into that without the silent count, where there's not the center communication with the left guard or right guard or whatever to the quarterback. Like they went into it, and early on in that game, it was false start after false start after false start. And if you're Kentucky, we're obviously a team that doesn't move the ball super well. So
Yeah.
setting yourself back is not going to help us out by any means early on in this one. So we're going to have to go in, like you said, we're going to have to figure out how we'll do the snap count, whatever. And that's going to be a big key early on, the communication in that chaos that they'll be bringing for South Carolina. So that's going to be a big key.
Yeah, we can't be like this in the backfield.
No, no, cannot do the clap. That will not work. There, we're
Yeah.
no, can't do that.
Yeah, I remember that John Gruden segment he had with that quarterback, and he was like, "Show me your snap count," and then the quarterback was like, I
Yeah,
don't.
it's Jackson Dart.
That
Yeah.
was Jackson Dart. And
Yeah.
he's like, you're kidding me. He's like, I could be doing that the whole game.
Yeah, he was like, no, no, no. What's your real snap count? He was like, that's it. Like,
Yeah, he's like, that's it. I mean, yeah, it's way different compared to the NFL compared to college football because you see all the time in college football where they're just clapping in the backfield.
yeah, yeah. College football is kind of a much simpler version when it comes to all those little things like that.
Yeah. I mean, you see in the NFL where you see one of the offensive player goes like this, before the snap, and I find that interesting. I'm like, if you do that, why doesn't that set off like the defense at all?
Yeah, I mean the NFL, that one we could probably do an entire podcast on just how complex the signal calling and everything is for them. But yeah, there's a billion different things. Like there's even in college it gets pretty complex. But yeah, I think that's going to be. We'll just need to keep it simple this week and
Mhm.
kind of do. I like the old fashioned, like if Cutter's looking at the left guard and the left guard taps the center to be able to snap it. Like I think that's all you should have to worry about in these games. Like because it
Yeah.
makes it simple, kind of makes it's flow. So I hope we do something
Yeah.
similar to that.
Yeah, we just don't want to be like the 2021 Florida Gators with the 8 false starts against UK.
No, definitely we need anything but that. That would be terrible.
Yeah, but still talking about this, game coming up right now. South Carolina is 2-2, and I think the most impressive thing is for South Carolina's defense, they have only allowed 5 total touchdowns to UK in the last 4 matchups, and I find that so impressive because like with all the star players we've had recently, with Will Levis, Chris Rodriguez, Ray Davis, you would think they would score more touchdowns, but that hasn't been the case over the recent years.
Yeah, the one with Ray Davis a couple years ago, I remember that was the drama game where he only had like 11 touches or something, where it was like just give the man the ball. Like he's a special player. So yeah, they've definitely had our number. I mean, last year that one it's hard to kind of be like, oh yeah, man, they really stopped us. That offense wasn't really moving the ball on anybody other than Southern Miss apparently. But this year, I expect this offense to be able to do a little something, whether it's the tight ends, which they've looked great so far. I expect these receivers to do a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be Hardley or Fred Farrier or like one of these. I expect a receiver to step up though. I feel like this is going to be a big time environment where you don't have to like apply the juice. Like you'll go into that stadium and you'll feel the juice right away. Like you'll be like, all right, now. Like you don't have to get up for that one. It's a night game, Columbia, South Carolina. Like they'll
Yeah.
be able to get into the flow of things. I expect this offense to be able to do a little bit more than what we've done the last little bit against them.
Yeah, I just don't want, the South Carolina or I mean last year against South Carolina or a couple years ago against Georgia. I just don't want those two things to go wrong again.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have that. I don't think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and then like I said, the main concern is just to stop Dylan Stewart. He can't get to the quarterback or the running back. Like we have to figure out how to stop him because last year just South Carolina's defensive line just uh got to the quarterback, running back so easily, and basically there was nothing that you could do with Brock Vandagriff at all.
Yeah, yeah. Like I mentioned last year, I think it was more. We knew who Kyle Kennard was going into the year. I mean, he ended up being super special all year. So that was our focus. And then you go into that was Dylan Stewart's second game of college. Like we didn't know what to expect, and he ate us alive. So I think now going into it this year, like knowing who he is, and he has been underwhelming though. This year, he came into the year where it was like it was Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams on the cover. But if they added defensive players to EA College Football 26 covers, like he would have been the guy.
Yeah, he
It would
would
have
have.
been him, Colin Simmons. But like he has not played even. I mean, he's maybe been first team SEC material, but not all American.
Yeah.
So this is one of those games I could see him in the staff trying to get him fired up, being like, this is where
Mhm.
it starts going because this is where you started it last year.
Mhm.
You know exactly what we're doing. So, but I expect. I mean, this line is obviously much better than what it was last year. So
Yeah.
we should handle him a lot better.
I mean, you brought in so many new players onto the offensive line, so hopefully he'll be very improved.
Yeah. Now that should definitely be the biggest change between last year's game and this year's game for sure.
Yeah, and like we've been talking about with Dylan Stewart, though, I saw him last year before the UK game, and I could not believe he was only a true freshman last year. Like, I saw him before the UK game, just, like there was a highlight video of just him, like him being circled on the screen, and then just him making plays. I'm like, How's he only a true freshman making these plays?
Yeah, he's one of those DMV kids that Shane Beamer somehow got, and he's
Yeah.
special. He's got just such a quick game to him. Like he should not be moving like that as an edge rusher. So hopefully, what he's shown so far this year is what happens in this game where he doesn't kill us like he did last year. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully not. And like I said, UK will definitely have to rebound from last year, losing 31-6 to them. And just talking about now the running back room, basically, I think the running back room will need to be there to just support Cutter Boley in this game being with him having his first true SEC start. And just talking about that right now with Seth McGowan, he's currently number 2 in the SEC with rushing touchdowns, and then of course Dante Dow, he's been producing as a running back room. But I just want basically for this UK game, if UK can do this, just run the ball, 30, 40 times if they can, control the game, like have the ball for like 40 minutes of this game, try to do that, control the ball and just run the ball so much.
Yeah, definitely controlling the ball is going to be uh, big time for sure. But the thing that's so interesting with like Beamer ball is he's been a special teams coach a lot of his life, and that's how they've made their things. Like I mentioned the Virginia Tech game earlier, like that game changed because of a punt return. Like I'm not saying we got to watch for like a punt return because that's obviously very rare, but like just the little things that they do, whether it's getting a kickoff returned out to the 35 or 40 or something, like he believes in special teams being extremely, extremely important. So that's going to be where I think the game is won and lost, where this one's going to be a close one either way. I would be stunned if either team gets blown out in this one. But I think that's going to be kind of the thing. Like you said, offensively, we're going to have to control the ball a lot. And I think just special teams wise, like we're going to have to play it very, very smart where if you need to flip the field, flip it. And it better, we better have great punts all night. Like that's going to be the kind of things that I'm looking forward to this game where that's what it's going to come down to, where in the end, you'll see the difference in the just special teams game, and that'll kind of tell us what the outcome is.
Yeah, and I think another thing for UK versus South Carolina is this game is the turnover margin. UK has to make sure they don't turn the ball over, whether it be a fumble, interception, turnover on downs. I mean, the past few years, I mean, the turnover margin, basically South Carolina led it in 2021. UK had -3 turnovers. 2022, luckily it was even in Lexington, but 2023 was -3 again, and then 2024 was -1. So UK has to make sure they control the ball and make sure they don't have turnovers in this game.
Yeah, no doubt. That's definitely going to be a big key. Um, and thankfully, they don't have necessarily like a incredible defense overall. They're certainly not bad by any means, but that should help. It's not like Cutter Boley's going against Texas's defense or Georgia's defense right off rip. So being able to ease into that, like where he's going to have to deal with that crowd, but he's also not going to have the best defense in America. Hopefully, that'll help him kind of stay away from turning the ball over. And we'll have to. I mean, we've seen Derrick Henry so far in the NFL has fumbled 3 times in key spots. Like we're gonna have to hold on to the ball because fumbles literally just kill games. Like that's
Yeah,
just kind of that's gonna be the thing. So Seth McGowan, these receivers, whatever it may be, hold on to the ball. That's gonna be a big time thing.
yeah, and I think in 2022, if we don't start with the trick play with Kaya Sheeran, of course, being the starting quarterback because Will Levis was injured, I really don't think if we start off with the trick play and we have that fumble, like we're more in that game whether we lose or not. Like I don't feel like our heart is crushed because we have a fumble the very first snap of the game, and of course, South Carolina scores, and then they had momentum the rest of the game from that.
Yeah, no doubt. Momentum's definitely a massive thing. Like I don't know if it obviously didn't affect it too much, but I remember seeing right when Indiana blocked the punt against Illinois this past week. Obviously that game ended up being
Yeah,
absolutely insane, but like it if you just look at like the odds of winning a game when you have a play like that, your odds go to like 90% win. So like when South Carolina, like you mentioned, 2022, that you start a game like that, South Carolina's odds of winning that game go up to like 85, 90%. So we definitely gotta watch that. Like can't have any crazy plays or anything. Like obviously that one was a trick play, but we can't have any early turnovers like you mentioned, and definitely gotta like take care of the ball. That's gonna be the big key.
Yeah, and still talking about Kentucky's offense, I mean, the past 4 years as well, their passing game has been awful. 2021, they only had 102 passing yards, one interception. 2022, 178 yards, two touchdowns, one interception. 2023, 171 yards, touchdown, and an interception. And then this past year, you know how many passing yards we had with Brock Vandegrift? It was awful.
I'm gonna guess it's like 70.
Not 70, worse.
What was it like 20 something?
44 yards, two interceptions.
44 yards. Gosh, yeah, yeah, it's gonna be much upgraded for sure.
Yeah, it better be better than 44 yards compared to last year. Whew.
Yeah, no doubt. I'd like to see. I don't know, like it's a lot to wish on him, but if Cutter can throw for 200 plus, I feel pretty good about the Cats in this one. If he can throw like 170 plus, I'd feel pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like I said, I feel like if UK wants to win any game, they need to at least have 200, 250 passing yards. Of course, that could be made up if you have a big running game. And I feel like this is what UK will focus on against South Carolina, just running the ball, whether it be like 60, 70% of their plays. I feel like it's just going to be a run heavy offense against South Carolina. And hopefully that leads us to a win.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll definitely have to run the ball and keep it very, very simple. We'll have to go short yardage, control the game clock, and keep them just away from the ball because they have obviously. I mean, we'll probably talk a little bit more about Lenore Sellers, but like they'll have the chances to break big plays. Like we're gonna have to control the clock and take care of the ball while we have it.
Yeah, I feel like if UK wants to win, they need to have the ball at least for probably 40 minutes of the game. If not 40, maybe 35, but around 35, 40 minutes of the game for UK to win.
Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely have to have it up there. We'll have to control it. We'll have to be the type of game where maybe like say if somebody's watching that's not really a fan where they'll want to turn it off. Like it needs to be like one of those where we look so boring, but that's how we would win this game. That would be the way.
I mean that is what frustrated me against Toledo, where we just ran the ball so much. I might pass the ball a little bit, but I mean, talking about last year's matchup a little bit, I mean, it was 10-6, midway into the third quarter, and I just find it so crazy how it got outreached so quickly after that. And of course, talking a little bit more about the game, Shane Beamer, he says this game is always a slugfest between the two, and going back, taking COVID out of it from 2015 on, the winning team has never scored more than 24 offensive points. And, I find that crazy. I'm like, wow, that's insane to see that stat as well.
Yeah, no doubt. It's definitely not a high scoring modern offense type of game by any means, but it's definitely a slugfest. It's a great way to put it. And technically, isn't it Stoops' only win the one that's technically vacated?
Yeah,
And that is only win against.
I believe. Yeah,
Yeah, tough little run against Beamer for
tough
Stoops.
little run. And of course, South Carolina scored 31 points, but they had a pick six, so it was technically only 24 offensive points. But of course, they still had that pick six against us.
Yeah, I feel like the range of points will be somewhere around there again, where it's gonna be in the lower 20s probably in this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, we'll see. But, let's talk a little bit about Lenore's Sellers and we'll get into score predictions and then we can talk a little bit more about, other sports, counting basketball, Bruce Pearl retiring, and then a little bit more about football, the nine-game SEC schedule as well.
Yeah, yeah, a lot to get to for sure.
Yeah, so of course, Lenore Sellers, he's a dual threat quarterback. He can throw and also pass, but I believe in good old Brad White. I believe he'll figure out something to stop Lenore Sellers, whether, get a QB spot so he doesn't run the ball. But of course, he got injured before this previous game. He had a concussion going to the game against Missouri. Of course, he's fully back, he's fully healthy. So we'll see what Lenore Sellers can do. But, I have very high confidence in Brad White and the defense to stop South Carolina this upcoming game.
Yeah, I definitely have a ton of confidence in Brad White, but to highlight Lenore Sellers a little bit, he has impressed me big time passing this year. he was one of those guys that I didn't necessarily write off, but I was like, you know what, we'll see. Like we'll see what he can do. Like he's obviously got the big frame, he can move, but he's been incredible passing. If you watched any of the Missouri game, his first touchdown pass, it was on a an offsides play, so it was kind of great IQ of him just to know like, all right, free shot. He throws it, drops it in the breadbasket. I don't remember. I want to say it was Jacobs that caught that touchdown, but incredible throw, like one of the best throws I've seen all year in college football. So what he's been able to do passing this year has been amazing. He had the deep ball in the Virginia Tech game that I've talked about to Nick Harbor, and that ball is perfect too. So I think a big part of this is going to be Brad White, where
Yeah,
we do play the bend don't break. We cannot break. Like that's going to be the thing. Like keep these guys. Nick Harbor's a freak athlete. Like they're gonna try to get him deep, try to break through at some point because obviously, I mean, a guy like Lenore Sellers and Shane Beamer, like the mindsets that they have, they're not gonna want to just sit around and just slow drive the full game. Like they're gonna just end up forcing something at some point. So I think that's gonna come into play where maybe Ty Bryant gets a couple more picks or something, and
yeah,
that's gonna be kind of the thing for Lenore. So I think he's gonna be he's gonna use his legs. He hasn't had a ton of yards this year, but when he's used his legs, it's been very beneficial for them. So he'll probably try to run through somebody. He'll be one of the fastest guys on the field at all times. So, but passing wise, he's only got a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, but he's been incredible from what I've seen so far out of when I've watched him. So, big shout out to Lenore Sellers for that. But I
hmm
do believe in Brad White for what he'll be able to do and kind of slowing them down and slowing this entire
yeah.
offense down that they have.
And Lenore Sellers could easily be a first round pick in the 2026 NFL draft.
You know, he reminds me of I had this like take I was just talking to some people last Saturday, just like watching the Missouri game. He gives me the vibe. He'll never be at the level of him, but he gives me the vibe of like Lamar, where he's just fun. He's like must see TV, and
Yeah,
he's also going to be the type of guy that like South Carolina obviously doesn't have a ton of former NFL quarterbacks where they've been really good. I could see him going being like a franchise changing player, like the final piece to a franchise in an NFL organization, and he just gives me that vibe where it's like, man, he
yeah.
could just take over games, and he's got the highlights for sure. That's one thing with him.
Yeah, and he's definitely a quarterback that can control and command the offense whenever he wants to. And it'll just be interesting to see what he can do because last year, of course, he was, injured a little bit against Kentucky, but, you saw what he could do, whether it be running the ball or, passing the ball. And like I said, anything can happen, and we'll see what Brad White, decides because, like I said, if you have a quarterback spy, that's great and all, but another player could be wide open down the field if you design it like that.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm super excited to just see the pass rush for him this year, like us pass rushing them because we obviously revamped this entire D line as well. And whether it's Rayner, Gusta, like Humphrey Grace, like I'm
Yeah,
excited to see those guys just get after him. He's going to have to be scrambling all day, and he's kind of he doesn't always do it, but he is kind of the type that, from what I've seen, that he like kind of tucks his head and just runs. As soon as he's got to like get out, he doesn't necessarily keep his eyes downfield all the time. So that could be very beneficial for us as well. Getting them off on third downs and stuff, like making sure they're off the field. But I don't know if you had it on your list to talk about just their run game in general,
they're
but
running.
that's been their panic button
Yeah,
this year has been they cannot run at all. They had a face on. He's a Utah State transfer running back. That was kind of the guy where it was like, all right, we'll see. Like, see if he can be what Rocket Sanders was for them last year. He's come over, hasn't been great.
mhm.
Their run game against Missouri, this was one of the most like jarring things I've seen in a long time. They lost in rushing difference. Missouri ran for 285 yards in that game. South Carolina ran for -9. They have not been able to run the ball at all.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they're going to just be forcing the ball down the field because they're not going to be able to run. Hopefully, we're kind of able to hold strong against them in the run game and maybe have a similar type of outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would be great because, like Austin Simmons didn't perform the best against UK, had two interceptions right away. And hopefully that's the same thing for UK, just be able to hold the run, make sure, their run defense is great. They don't allow a lot of yards. And then, of course, don't give up explosive plays with the passing game. And, I'm interested to see what happens. And hopefully, Brad White can always do his good old saying, bend don't break. So we'll definitely see what happens with UK's defense and offense going to the South Carolina game.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Chip Trayanum looked good against us. Not gonna lie, like with Toledo, but um, Kejuan Lacey for Ole Miss, he's been really good all year, but he didn't necessarily do a whole lot against us. So
Yeah.
maybe going into it, we will be able to just stop the run game and kind of force them to make plays that they're not necessarily comfortable making. But they really just have two threatening receivers. But I feel good about our DBs against them, and I'm excited to see kind of the matchup in general.
I'm ready to see the front seven too, to see what McQueese Grace Humphrey can do along with Dave Augusta, and then of course our secondary with Ty Bryant, Jordan Lovett, and the other players. So I'm excited to see what UK's defense can do, and hopefully it can be another low scoring game, and UK's offense can actually prevail them to a win.
Man, I hope so. I would love to see this game end up coming with a W because it's been a long time coming. We went where we were owning these boys for years, and then now it's kind of
Yeah.
flipped where they've owned us the last little bit.
Yeah, Steve Spurrier retiring. Basically, UK calls that with Mark Stoops. So that was great and lovely.
Yeah, yeah. Even the what was it? The even like the 2021 team when we went down there, we were like a slight favorite, and I just never even felt like we were gonna lose that game. I think we won like it was a weird score, like 17-6 or something. But like
Yeah,
even those games, I was like, man, it's just South Carolina. We just beat these guys. Like it's what we
yeah.
do. But it's obviously flipped since then.
Yeah, it's obviously flipped since then, of course, with Shane Beamer taking over and everything. But let's get into the score predictions for the South Carolina game, and then we can move on to the SEC schedule for UK football. They just announced that for 2026 through 2029, but we'll get into it. I'm going to expect it to be somewhat of a low scoring game. I'm going to, I'll go with UK to cover the spread 5.5 points. I'll go with South Carolina 27, UK 23. UK goes for a game-winning drive, but ultimately fails and doesn't get the touchdown at the end.
Yeah, I think this will be a very kind of a bend don't break game entirely, where it's going to be not a whole lot of movement in general, but there's going to be big touchdown plays, whether it's McGowan breaking one for us or a receiver kind of just killing them on a route or something. But I think it'll end up being where both teams will end up scoring a little bit. But I think South Carolina will probably have the edge. And I also have us covering the spread, but I'm going to go South Carolina 24-21.
24-21, so we're pretty close with each other.
Yeah, very close. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the I didn't even realize the stat that you said where the offense hasn't scored more than 24 in this game in whatever amount of time. So like I already had the 24 in my mind before, but now I feel even better because that's kind of been the cutoff for the offense. So
Yeah, I'm going a little bit above that, of course. I'm expecting, a little bit more of a high scoring game. Like I said, 27 South Carolina, UK 23. Hopefully we're both wrong and UK gets the win though.
yeah, man, I hope so. The that would be quite the boost. That would flip the fan base a little bit and
Yeah.
get people hyped up.
Yeah, if UK does that, even if they run the ball 30 times, 30 times against South Carolina, like, even though it might be boring, at least we get the win.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I would take the win in the most boring football game of all time for sure.
Yeah, same here. UK, they're known as the Iowa's offense because of Mark Stoops.
Yeah, yeah, we got a lot of Iowa in us for sure.
Yeah, I was for sure. But now we're going to talk about the nine-game SEC schedule was just announced the other day. UK's permanent opponents will be Florida, Tennessee, and South Carolina for the next 4 years from 2026 through 2029. A little bit more info about it. Every SEC venue visited over a 4-year cycle, and this will definitely impact scheduling, rivalry games, and postseason hopes for UK because going to a nine-game schedule. I remember the talk before is if UK went to a nine-game SEC schedule, will they get rid of the Louisville game? Of course, that's not going to happen because of the SEC commissioner, making that rule saying they must play one other opponent from another Power Four school. So that's what UK will be doing against Louisville.
Yeah, the only time that I could ever see that end up not happening is if we end up doing that thing with the Big Ten that's been kind of talked about a little bit, where
Yeah.
if we kind of match up and do like a home and home with a Big Ten opponent, then I could see us maybe dropping that Louisville game. But it is exciting. I kind of like just seeing the schedule way ahead of time because like you get to see like obviously a lot of things will change about like 2029, but like just being able to see it because it's always been you just see the schedule right before like about a year in advance, or a little less than a year. So I like seeing it all laid out like that.
Yeah, and 2026 to get more into the SEC schedule, you have Florida, at South Carolina, at Tennessee, at Missouri, at Oklahoma, at Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, and then Vanderbilt for the nine-game SEC schedule in 2026. So definitely a very tough, hard schedule for UK, and I'm just hoping UK can get 4 or 5 wins against the SEC opponents.
Yeah, no doubt. The one that stands out to me on that one is well, obviously we're at a few tough environments, but the just if Stoops is still here, you get a Stoops team going to Norman to play in Oklahoma against an Oklahoma team. So that'll be just fun for storylines. But obviously, getting Alabama in town will be fun, and getting LSU. I mean, we got them in 2021 as well, but getting some of those big brands in Lexington right off rip will be pretty
Yeah.
fun.
And I find it interesting with the schedule. Basically, UK has to go to South Carolina 3 out of 4 times, but the trade-off is Florida has to come to Lexington 3 out of 4 times. So I found that interesting with the scheduling with, the SEC opponents because, I hate going to South Carolina. Like, why do we have to go there 3 out of 4 times? But luckily, like I said, Florida has to do the same thing against UK.
Yeah, yeah, they're probably just as annoyed with that as we are, but it was probably just super difficult to figure out how to make this all work. So I don't mind it too much, but hopefully South Carolina's just a little down over these next few years. Like they're not necessarily this like world beater where I'm nervous about them, but I don't like going there because it's such a tough environment. So it is kind of a tough little scene, but we do get the Gators in Lexington for a few years.
Yeah, and hopefully, maybe St. Beamer does go to Virginia Tech, so we'll see about that though.
Yeah, I would like to think that that'll happen, but like, man, I don't think it'll happen. But it'd be cool. It'd be
Yeah,
cool if he just
it
did
would.
his father's legacy.
Yeah, and then 2027, we have Georgia at Ole Miss, at Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, Auburn, at Arkansas, at Texas, and Mississippi State. And I think with the 2027 schedule, I'm really interested in playing against Arkansas. I believe the last time we ever played against Arkansas was in the 2019 season when Lynn Bowden Jr. just went insane during that game. And, everybody remember, of course, Jared Lorenzen during that game, and it was basically a game to remember him from passing. But I mean, like that game was like something you could always remember if you were at Kroger Field.
Yeah, the Jared Lorenzen was what I was going to bring up. They had the 22 towels waving around, so
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. But that one will be fun. I would imagine. I'm going to go ahead and call my shot. I think that'll be Rhett Lashley coaching that Arkansas team at that point. The head coach of SMU right now. I think Sam Pittman will be gone this year, and I think by the time we go there in 2027, I think it'll be Rhett Lashley. That's just my guess for who they'll end up getting.
a bold take.
It is a bold take, but it just feels like that's what's going to happen
Yeah.
for the Razorbacks.
But like I said, I'm definitely most intrigued just playing against Arkansas because we rarely ever do, and I'm excited for that matchup definitely in 2027.
Yeah, the rest of them aren't necessarily like crazy. Like we'll get Auburn at home, like that's it's nothing crazy. I mean, we had them at home last year, but yeah, the rest of them are kind of games that we've played fairly recently. So the Arkansas one's definitely the one that stands out for me on that schedule.
Yeah, and then also, I find interesting is 2026 we play against Texas A&M out there, and then 2028 they come here. So I'm excited about that because basically every time we played against Texas A&M, we've always had to travel there, sadly.
Yeah, they've been in the conference since 2012 and have never come to Kroger Field. So they'll finally make their Kroger Field debut at 2028. But that'll be one of the fun things about this new annual opponents thing and doing all this is like we'll actually get to see teams play at places that they haven't before.
Yeah, and then 2028, we've got Florida at South Carolina, at Tennessee, Missouri, at Alabama, oh no, at LSU, at Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M. Like, I feel like UK is going to really struggle with that schedule in 2028. I'm not ready for that. Woof.
Yeah, that was my initial. As soon as I saw these schedules come out, my first tweet was that poor 2028 team because they're going to have to travel to South Carolina, to Tennessee, to LSU, to Alabama. Like that is arguably the four hardest. Like obviously Kyle Fields up there, and there's a
Yeah,
few others that are very respectable. But like those four are just brutal. Like those are going to be that team. Those poor guys might have already missed a bowl. I don't even know what team we're going to have, but like, gosh, dude,
yeah.
that's a gauntlet.
John Summerall, wink, wink, wink.
Yeah, hopefully so. I've heard so many people talking about Florida with some John Summerall hype growing up. I would be shocked if they went G5 again though, because with Billy Napier just it didn't work for him then. Not saying John Summerall would be anything like that, but like I would just be shocked if they went back to that route. I
Yeah,
hope he's at Kentucky at that point. Hopefully he's not at one of these other teams on the schedule.
yeah. And then going to the 2029 schedule, you've got at Georgia, Ole Miss, at Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, at Auburn, Arkansas, Texas, and then at Mississippi State. Like, I feel like the 2029 schedule could be like the easiest out of the four.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Um, that schedule is just fun. Like that one, obviously, it all depends like on how the schedule lays out entirely too. Like obviously, the one year where it's at Alabama, at LSU, like if those are back to back, it's just like all right. I mean, like what are we doing? But like if they're separated and you can kind of like lose one early, have a shot and one late, like those will be a little bit different. But I do have to ask, like, what do you think? I wasn't necessarily shocked by it. It kind of just felt like that was what it was going to be. But what do you think about the annual opponents that we have? The three, the Florida, South Carolina, and Tennessee.
I like it honestly. Like the only team that we really, of course, we've struggled against South Carolina recently, but the only team that we really struggle out of the three is really Tennessee. Like we can never defeat Tennessee for some odd reason. Like they always have our numbers. I mean, the last time we were able to defeat them was in 2020 during COVID in Knoxville, and then before that, I believe it was 2017 with Steven Johnson at Kroger Field. So I feel like we can, at least defeat two of the three opponents every year. Of course, we could potentially go 0 and 3, some years against them, but I feel confident that we can go 2 and 1 against them, like from 2026 through 2029.
Yeah, my initial thought was like we were no matter what we were going to get one of these three or Georgia and Vanderbilt, and I thought we were going to end up getting a Georgia Tennessee Vanderbilt thing, and that was going to be like I
Oh,
mean, brutal because it's like two losses out of the three. So with this one, obviously, it will probably be once this all happens, we'll probably be playing a Billy Napierless Florida, and maybe they'll be back or something. So that'll make it a lot more difficult. But yeah, like you said, you can beat two out of these three every single year. Um, and then Tennessee will always be in the game. I mean, that's how it's been with Stoops. We'll be right there. Obviously, we haven't won many, but there's always a fighting chance. So when you get them at Kroger Field, on the off chance that you can beat them, it'd be fun to have that trio. But I do kind of like it. We don't have Georgia, so that kind of stinks out of that. Like we don't have the opportunity to finally break the streak,
mhm.
so that makes it tough. But the having the Tennessee one makes sense. Just having the rivalry that'll forever be there. And then Florida has always been like a big rivalry for me, like my whole life. Like that's always
Yeah,
just felt right.
that 30,
So I'm glad we're able to keep that because I was worried about losing that one.
yeah, 31-year losing streak against them.
Yeah, yeah, it was brutal, but that's one of the best memories ever.
Yeah,
When we once
that's
we finally beat
yeah,
them.
just finally being able to defeat them back in 2018, like that was such a great moment, even though I was in Bowling Green at that time. Like just reliving that memory, like I would love to do that. Of course, I've got a video of me like filming it whenever, UK was finally able to upset Florida, but like I wish I could go back to that exact moment to relive it.
Yeah, yeah, that moment. I also have a video of just that entire the ending of that game, the like fumble that we technically returned for the touchdown, and
Yeah.
all of that. It was just awesome. That game was incredible.
It was a great moment. But before we talk about basketball, I just feel like we need to mention about Mike Gundy. Of course, he was fired from Oklahoma State. And, like it doesn't come to me as a surprise or a shock because basically he was going to get fired at the end of last year if he didn't restructure his contract. And, he probably wishes he probably didn't do that. But like, if he didn't do that, he probably would have been fired last year. And of course, he got fired 3 games into the season against or for Oklahoma State, which, some people are surprised by that.
Yeah, I'm definitely part of the crowd that was surprised because I think even from the Kentucky perspective, like Stoops isn't as much a legend here as Gundy is at Oklahoma State, and I still think if we're going to fire him, we're waiting till the end of the year, whether it's done behind the scenes beforehand or not. just letting the man finish out the year is just like an ultimate respect card where it's like, man, Stoops, you've got us to this place, whatever. So I was shocked that they just canned Gundy in the middle of the year. I thought they'd let him ride it out, finish the year. Obviously, the year's not going to be much of anything anyway. Like they're already not going to compete for the Big 12. Just kind of go with it. Like, and you can do it like behind the scenes where you tell other coaches like, hey, we're about to have an opening, and kind of talk behind the scenes, which is technically illegal, but like it happens.
Yeah.
I was just shocked by the timing of it. I thought they'd let him finish the year, especially after the Tulsa game, and then you wait until Tuesday to do it. I was like, I mean, do that Sunday or Monday. Like if you're gonna do it like right after that one, but it was obviously time. I think this was his 21st year there.
Mhm.
Um, so he's been a legend. He's been a coach of the year in the conference. I think 3 times. He's won the conference. I mean, 2 years ago he was are like 2 inches away from making the college football playoff, and it's crazy the fall from grace that happens that quick. But it's just kind of the changing of the times. Like, it's just another legend of the game that has the time has passed. It's moved on. Now I'm interested to see where they go now, what direction they go
Yeah, we'll
with
see.
coach hiring.
But yeah, like you said, they were just 2 inches away from making the college football playoff a couple years ago. And like you said, just crazy how that happens. I mean, you could say that for UK against Ole Miss in 2022, if that, like illegal motion with Barry Brown doesn't happen, UK wins that game against Ole Miss and they go on to being 6-0, and who knows what UK does that year. Of course, we would probably keep, our offensive coordinator Rich Scangarello for another year, and then who knows what happens with that.
Yeah, that would have been wild. Yeah, the red zone Rich was not the answer.
Yeah, but maybe it all worked out. Rich, left UK, Liam Cohen came back. Now he's the head coach with the Jaguars. Like maybe it all worked out for the best for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, I do wish Liam the best of luck. Like I know he came back and it kind of rubbed Kentucky fans the wrong way that he came back, said he was going to be here multiple years, and then left after a year again. But it would be cool just to kind of have that Kentucky connection in the NFL if he could just stick around and be a head coach for a while.
Yeah, and of course he has also Josh Hines Allen on the team, so that's exciting as well.
Yeah, is Fortner still there, or is he?
I think Luke Fortner is still there, but of course,
Let me
like
see.
he's not the main person.
Yeah, yeah, definitely not the starter anymore. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, yeah, he's on the Saints. I forgot he's with Landon Young now. He's with him now, so
Mhm. Landon
that
Young,
is
yeah,
pretty
I
cool.
remember him from back in the day. But of course, we all can't remember Mike Gundy. Of course, he's very well known for, I'm a man, I'm 40. And whenever he got announced, he was fired and everything. Of course, Oklahoma State made the announcement. I posted that video like through everything. And of course, some of it got, good publicity, like a lot of likes and retweets. Sound like, let's go, like that's how people will remember him probably though.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it was I want to say I saw that like Monday was like the 18-year like anniversary of
Yeah.
it. Like it was like to the day, and he got fired the next day. Like it
Yeah.
was crazy timing.
Yeah, perfect timing basically. But speaking of, coaches getting fired, now we'll talk about, Bruce Pearl. He of course retired for Auburn earlier this weekend. That came as a surprise before we talk about Kentucky basketball, but honestly, like it was a surprise because he's been there 10 years. He was about to go into the season where like basically less than a month away from the season starting, and it just came as a surprise for everybody.
Yeah, definitely a big surprise. There's a lot of mixed feelings about this whole thing because like I mean, I've always liked Bruce, but I also didn't grow up in the era where people hated his guts. He had the baggage at Iowa where he technically cheated with recruiting, and then he goes to Tennessee, does all this stuff with the barbecue, throws his coaches under the bus, and then he has a show cause, goes to Auburn,
Yeah.
and he kind of puts on this front like he's just an amazing guy, which I think he genuinely is a good dude.
Mhm.
And then he ends his career and I mean, it's not a shady way, but a little nepotism where he's like, you know what, you have to hire my son. Like, you're not going to have a chance to do a national search. So it's a little shady how he ended it. But I loved Bruce. He always gave the utmost respect to Kentucky, whether it was kissing up to try to get a job at some point or if he was just genuinely loved the school and loved the coaching and everything. So I always liked Bruce. I'll miss him. I thought he was awesome for the sport overall, whether it was on the court, off the court, all the good stuff. But he'll be missed for sure.
Yeah, of course, me being as a media member, I remember just, I believe it was the 2022-2023 season whenever Kentucky just, blew out Auburn at Rupp Arena. It was a great time. Like, Antonio Reeves went off, Casey Wallace
Flamethrower.
went off, Oscar Tshiebwe went off, everybody went off for the UK during that game. And I just remember, I believe it might have been during both halftime and after the game, but I just remember like Bruce Pearl being so loud, yelling in the locker room. I'm like, you don't have to, be so loud and make all the media members hear you because, like I said, he was just yelling. I don't think he was cursing at the team, but he was definitely just yelling at the team. And I'm like, just calm it down a little bit. I get you're losing or you lost by a ton, but no need to react like that.
Yeah, we did absolutely destroy them that year. So that was a fun old game. He ended up what was his record against Kentucky? I've seen people tweet it out.
I
Uh,
have the post. Let me see what it was real quick.
I
And
think he might have been like 6-10 or 6-11 as well. Like,
it
but
was
yeah, he definitely.
10 and 18 from his start from Tennessee to uh
Oh, with Tennessee too. Okay, 10-18. Yeah, thanks for a lot of wins, Bruce. We
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah,
But yeah, he's definitely a legend of the game though. He's not quite in the tier of like the you know Jay Wrights and Coach K's, Roy Williams, but like he's a guy that's been around for a while. He made Auburn a basketball school,
yeah,
dang near. Like they love their basketball. I mean, their fan base is so delusional now. They call themselves blue blood, but like
yeah.
they did not care about basketball before Bruce.
Mhm.
Now it kind of continues on. And honestly, best of luck to Steven. If
Yeah.
he has a career like his father, he'll still lose to us, but have good teams. So that would be fine with me.
Yeah, and that would be fine with me as well. Stephen Pearl, of course, he's taken over for Bruce Pearl. Stephen Pearl is you know, his father is Bruce Pearl. So, like I said, I don't think Stephen Pearl will do as good as his father did, coaching basketball. And hopefully I'm wrong about this, but I feel like he could do a little bit better than Kenny Payne. But I could see him being exactly like Kenny Payne whenever he was at Louisville. And of course, I wish him the best, whenever they play, except against Kentucky. But, I could definitely see Stephen Pearl having like a career arc like Kenny Payne.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I feel like it's gonna be drastic one way or another. Where he already has signed a 5-year deal. I feel like
Yeah,
he's gonna finish up that 5-year deal, and he'll get a massive contract because he's killed it there, or he's not even gonna make it those 5 years, and they'll be getting rid of him and searching somewhere else. So,
yeah,
hiring these guys with no coaching experience, no head coaching experience, is obviously super risky. But
yeah,
I mean, it worked for John Shire, so that one is one recent example. Obviously, he was a crazy good player, much better than Stephen Pearl was. But
yeah.
I know Stephen Pearl is very respected in like the
Mhm.
defensive aspect of the game, where he's kind of known as that, and he's been an assistant coach and then an associate head coach for a little bit now. So
Yeah.
he'll be an interesting hire to follow to kind of see if these do work, where you kind of go with this younger route.
Yeah, and hopefully I'm wrong. And like you said, he could have the career arc like John Shar just taking over from Coach K and just leading Duke to the Elite Eight, Final Four, whatever it might be. And like if Stephen Pearl does that, congrats to him and Auburn. But I give him 2 or 3 years at tops to see what Auburn can do under him. And if he isn't performing well, then he's out within 2 or 3 years. And if he's performing well, he'll get an extension within like the first 3 years.
Yeah, no doubt. Honestly, a career arc that I can definitely see him have is Hubert Davis, where he's going to have a crazy squad off rip, where it's
Yeah.
Todd Pettiford, Caden Magwood coming out of the freshman, like, a lot of good transfers. This is going to be a good team. I'm not saying they're going to make a Final Four, but where I could see them have a really good first year
Mhm.
and then kind of flame out. He's still going to get recruits. He's a young up and coming coach. Like he'll be able to recruit a little bit, but
Yeah.
I can see him have that too, where that's kind of in between the Kenny Payne, John Shire, where it's a interesting middle path there.
Middle path, yeah. We'll see what happens though with Stephen Pearl, and of course, whatever Bruce Pearl does, of course, he's expected to take, a job within the Auburn athletics program, I believe. So we'll see if that actually does happen. And, I wish everybody the best of luck going forward, and we'll see what Auburn does because, hopefully Kentucky can defeat Auburn this upcoming year and just have a better SEC record than them as well.
Yeah, hopefully so. He went off with a quite the squad. I mean, he went off with one of the best teams just statistically that we've seen in a while. So obviously made the Final Four.
Yeah.
Great way to go out. Two Final Fours at Auburn is incredible. So yeah, hats off to Bruce on a great career though.
Yeah, UK should have still defeat Auburn in the Elite Eight. I still don't know how we lost that game. Like,
Yeah, that one will forever hurt.
it broke my mind for sure. But enough talking about Auburn. We'll quickly talk about basketball, wrap this podcast up because we've been going on for a little bit over an hour now. But we'll talk about Kentucky basketball real quick. Rajon Rondo and Tayshaun Prince, they were back on campus, and it's always great to see that. Last week, Karl Anthony Towns was also on campus, and also Tayshaun Prince. He was just inducted into the UK Hall of Fame, so that was great to see as well.
Yeah, no doubt. You mentioned Cat, and then Rondo also did it where they give these speeches. That just made me want to tear up. Like I'm just like, man, these guys like really love this place, dude. Like they get it. And so seeing them talk to those guys, it's so cool. And Rondo's obviously not the most outspoken guy in the world, so seeing him give a speech like that, um, it's just awesome. Those two legends, and then you mentioned Tayshaun. He should have his jersey in the rafters.
Yeah.
It's got to happen soon.
Yeah, it has to happen for sure very soon. I mean, like I said, it's great to see him being inducted into the UK Hall of Fame, but his jersey has to be soon retired into the Raptors. And of course, Prince wasn't the only person that had his or retired with UK. Also, it was also Randall Cobb. So, it's great to see a UK football legend also be retired into the UK Athletics Hall of Fame. So congrats to both of them as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Two legends for sure. It was definitely due time for Tayshaun. And then, yeah, Randall, it was just whenever it would happen. That was obviously going to happen soon. But yeah, those two guys are very, very much worth the retiring of them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're about to wrap this podcast up, but hopefully more former Kentucky basketball players will definitely, continue to show up at practice because, that's great to see, former players still wanting to be a part of campus and everything and mentoring the young. So hopefully that can continue to happen. Same with the Kentucky football program. We saw Josh Hines Allen recently at a Kentucky football game, so let's continue the tradition where we see former Cats coming back supporting the team.
Yeah, definitely. It's so cool to see the guys come back, whether they're just giving a speech, coming back to visit, whatever it may be. Just having the guys back in town is always so cool.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Now, the only thing would be a little bit of the practice notes that Jack put out. There was some good news in that. I didn't know if you wanted to mention
Yeah,
anything about that.
yeah, I don't know. The podcast has gone a little bit over an hour, but maybe we can talk about that on another podcast, though.
Okay, yeah, that worked.
Yeah. Sorry about that. You always already 9:30 though at the time we're recording this podcast, and I work at 5, so need to get ready for Betty Bye.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta get ready for bed for sure.
All right. Well, hopefully everybody has a great rest of their night, great rest of their week and weekend, and hopefully UK defeats South Carolina this upcoming Saturday.
Yep, hopefully so. Go Cats in a
Yeah,
big one.
go Cats. But this is Chris Eastmore and
And Cameron Waddle.
signing out, and we appreciate you all watching on YouTube and listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
See y'all.
Peace.